you over there. I see you struggling with the numbers, but don't have no fear, cause I'm right here. We're gonna grow and learn together, there's no need to despair. Math cool like breeze, I can learn it with ease. So leave your concerns because it's time to learn.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For this video, which is part 3 of our addition and subtraction series, we will be looking at how to add and subtract all numbers irregardless of size, and that's by using the infamous concept of place value. Yeah, remember that topic that we covered back in chapter 2 and 3? Yeah man, that's same one. Now, I don't really know if this is the official name for this method, but you'll soon figure out why I call it that. So without any further delay, let's begin. Now, the key to adding and subtracting bigger numbers is to think of the different place value groups. So essentially we start by lining the numbers up by their place value. Then the next step is to add or subtract each place value group, starting with the lowest place value. So we always work our way from the right. Sounds simple, don't? No, I would love to say that is it and end the lesson right here, but this is math, so you know that there's always a little complicated twist. So let's get into it by looking at a few examples, starting with addition. First, let's try 65 plus 72. So we start by lining the numbers up by their place values. Then we add the digits in each place value group, starting with the ones digit. So 5 plus 2, and that gives 7. Then for our tens digits, we have 6 plus 7, and from the previous video, we can easily get the sum, which is 13. So our total is 137. Let's do another example. How about 476 plus 48? By lining up each digit based on their place value, we have the following. So let's start at our ones digit and begin to add. 6 plus 8 is 14, which breaks down to 1 tens and 4 ones. So in this case, our ones digits add together to give a number with a tens digit and a ones digit. So here's what we do. We place the 4 in the ones place of our total, and we move the 1 over to our tens column because that is where it belongs. Remember, we're to group all the numbers by their place value, so we place the 1 here to ensure that we are consistent with adding the right group of numbers together. Then we continue on to our tens column and we add. So 7 plus 4 plus 1 is 12, which means 2 tens and 100. So we use the same concept. 2 in the tens column, and we move the 1 over to the hundreds column where it belongs. Then we move on to the hundreds column and add 4 plus 1, and we get 5. That means that the sum of 476 and 48 is 524. Now the process of moving the extra digit over to the correct place value group when adding is known as carrying. So whenever the sum within a place value group is a number with more than one digit, we write down the lowest value digit and carry the rest of the digits over to the next column. Now, because this method relies on place value, we can add any number or any set of numbers together using the same concept, and it will work every single time, even with decimals. Let's try one final example before we move on to subtraction. Rory saved $578 in the first 6 months of the year. Then for the next 3 months, he was able to save $396. How many months did he save in total, and how much money does he have at the end of saving? Okay, so this is a 2-for-1, so let's start with the easiest problem first. To find the total number of months, we add 6 plus 3, and we can use the skill we learned in our very first video in the series to get the result, which is 9. Now, the next question is how much money does Rory have at the end of saving? These are much bigger numbers, so let's use the place value method. So we have 578 plus 396, and we're going to line up our digits by their place values. Then we start adding at our ones digit. So a plus 6, that's 14. So we write 4 and carry 1 over to the tens column. 7 plus 9 plus 1 is 17. So we write 7 and carry 1 over to the hundreds column. And finally, 5 plus 3 plus 1 is 9. So the sum of 578 and 396 is 974. So Rory saved a total of $974 over a period of 9 months total. Now I'm taking my time to carefully explain why we carry the digits over and how understanding place value helps in getting this concept. But of course, understanding goes hand in hand with practicing, right? So here are a few more examples to try out on your own. Make sure you're writing these down, because we're about to move on. Okay, let's move on to subtraction, and the steps are very similar. First, we start with lining the numbers up by their place value. Then we subtract these groups starting from the right. Our first example is 96 minus 54. By lining the numbers up, we have. Then we start to subtract. So 6 minus 4 is 2, and 9 minus 5 is 4. So the difference is 42. Awesome. Now let's try another example. 552 minus 27. Again, we line the place value groups together and then subtract starting at our ones digits in this case. So first we have 2 minus 7. And we've run into a little problem because 2 is a smaller number. So here's what we do. We know that 552 is made up of 2 ones, 5 tens, and 5 hundreds. So we convert one of our tens into ones by taking one group of 10 and moving it over to our ones column. Now, one group of 10 is 10 ones, so adding it to 2 ones would give a total of 12 ones altogether. And since 12 is bigger than 7, we can now continue to subtract. This process of converting place value groups in order to subtract is known as borrowing. And in this case, we say we borrow 1 from the tens column and bring it over to the ones column. Now we subtract because 12 is bigger than 7. When we do this, we get 5. Then we continue on to the tens column. We now have 4 tens, right? Because we had borrowed 1, brought it over to the ones column. So now 4 tens minus 2 tens, subtracting we get 2. And finally, 5 minus 0 is 5. So our final result is 525. Let's move on to another example. 302 minus 56. You know the drill. We line it up, then we subtract. Now, 2 is smaller than 6, so we move on over to our tens column to borrow a group of 10. But there's a 0 here, so can't borrow from nothing, right? So we have to move over even further to our hundreds column, and here's what we do. We borrow 1 from the hundreds column, right? That leaves 2 hundreds, and we take it over to our tens column, and by converting it, we have 10 groups of 10. But remember, we needed more ones digits, so from the 10 groups, we borrow 1 group of 10, leaving 9 groups, and we take it over to the ones column and add it to the 2 ones, so we have 12 ones altogether. And now we can subtract. 12 minus 6 is 6, 9 minus 5 is 4, and 2 minus 0 is 2. So the final result is 246. Let's try to explain the concept of borrowing in more detail. So, when we're subtracting place value groups, right, and the number we're subtracting from is smaller, we borrow from the first non-zero number and convert the borrowed number to the correct place value group as we go along. It might look like a bunch of crossing out and a bag of confusion, but all we're really doing is rearranging some of our place value groups so that we can subtract successfully. Now, let's get back to Rory. After saving for 9 months, he decides to buy a football that costs $496.75. So, how much money will he have left? Let's subtract using the place value method. So we have 974 minus 496.75. Now we start by lining up our numbers. Notice that our first number has no decimal places, but we can place zeros there as placeholders because they don't change the number. So now let's subtract. 0 is a smaller number than 5, so we have to borrow from the closest non-zero number, which is 4. So we borrow 1, leaving 3. Then we add that to the first 0. Then we borrow again, leaving 9. And we add that to our second 0. And now we can subtract our decimals. 10 minus 5 gives 5. And 9 minus 7 gives 2. And we place our decimal point here. Now 6 is greater than 3, so we have to borrow again. Now by subtracting, we have 13 minus 6, which is 7. So on to the next. Wait, do we have to borrow again? Boy, this is one complicated number. Okay, here's what we do. Now we subtract 9 from 16 to get 7. And finally, 8 minus 4 is 4. So the final amount is 477.25. Here are some more examples to try on your own. And that is it for today's lesson. I hope that this video was really helpful in explaining how place value plays an important step in addition and subtraction. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever thought of it in this way. I know that we've covered a lot, so it's time for a recap. The place value method involves lining numbers up by their place value in order to add or subtract, starting with the lowest place value. When adding, if the sum of any place value group gives more than one digit, we write down the lowest value number and carry the other digits over to the next place value group. When subtracting, if the number we're subtracting from is smaller, then we borrow from the closest non-zero number in order to do the operation. And that is it. Join me next week for the last video in the series where I wrap up addition and subtraction by providing some extra facts as well as some tips to help you along your addition and subtraction journey. Also, be sure to look out for an additional video next week, Tuesday, where I take you through the solutions of the practice questions given earlier in this video. I mean, did you really think I was gonna leave you guys out in the cold? No! So take the next few days to work on them and then join me next Tuesday to go through the answers. Be sure to like, comment below, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at mathislifeja. Lastly, be a friend and tell a friend. Remember, we're all in this together because math is life.